See if anybody shows up this time. Hey. Sorry, I forgot to put it on my calendar until a little late. It is the same time as it was last week. And, yeah. Should see how this goes. Looks like the school district's finally getting around to making some decisions about how we're moving forward. So there should be information coming out in the near future, next week or two, about how things look. I still don't know much, but I've been asked for feedback, which is new. So that's something. Figuring out that I'm live has gotten harder and harder. It's curious. Make sure. Yes, yes. Okay, that's good. So we should be chilling. Just can't find myself yet. Sorry if you're here and you're wondering why I'm waffling. I am struggling to find my own stream. When I find it, I'll put a link to it in the homework calendar, and maybe we'll get a couple more people over. But the struggle is real. I'm even subscribed to myself. Wonder how that happens. Rats of frats. Well, hello, hello. If you're here, it says I'm streaming, and I have been for a bit. 4.5 minutes, and I still can't find it. Oh well. If you were working on those questions and I just disappeared them, I'm sorry. Technical difficulties. Just the norm. And there we are. Finally. 3 people watching. Appears other people have also struggled to find it. Or did not remember or did not see the updates. So now I can put a link on my homework calendar. Hello, if you are here, and welcome. Yes, my date is horribly wrong at the top of this, and I can super fix that. I just used an old model from a different day. Whoops, 2020. That's fixed. And you know, at worst, this is a video people can consult if they were struggling with any of this stuff. So, if you're here, feel free to say hello. I can actually finally read chat because it actually finally updated and told me that I was live. But it says I started streaming 5 minutes ago. That lag is concerning, to say the least. It has been getting worse because I've been streaming on YouTube for years. And it is definitely worse. Where is everyone? Wow, yeah, I know. It's definitely a very quiet landscape right now. I think it might just be you, Samantha, because I think I might be the two people watching, because I think I count as watching. Worst comes to worst, this is a really short stream. Oh, there's Alex also. So we got Samantha, Alex, and myself. Kind of surprised Caden's not here because he emailed me this morning. But these are the questions I would like you trying out if you're here. And in case you weren't here from the very beginning when I was rambling because I couldn't see chat, the districts finally sent us something giving some amount of direction or asking us for input on what we're going to cover for the rest of the year or whatever. They're still deciding whether or not there are letter grades or whether or not it's pass-fail. They're deciding what the cutoffs are for whether or not you pass or fail or any of that stuff. So that's finally something has changed for the first time in like 2 weeks. And we may be getting more direction. But for now, just try to stay as fresh as you can. And if you struggled with any of the material, the 2 or 3 people watching, I can try to help you today with that stuff. And a lot of the stuff on this warm-up here is that new stuff. So, I'm not terribly surprised that fewer people showed up this week. Homework rates have also dropped, even though I just submitted missing assignments for a lot of people. Although I don't think it was either of you who have commented so far. Oh, we got another person. Hello, Leslie. People who are here, were you able to do the homeworks this week? / was the stuff hard? Were the videos sufficient if you used them? Or were you able to just figure it out? Like, any feedback on that stuff? Oh, we're up to 6. Vachin just showed up. Very hard, don't get it. Yeah, I was expecting, because it was brand new, that some people would struggle with it for sure, which is why, I was hoping some people would show up to this. Honestly, I tried to figure it out, but I just kind of gave up. Okay, yeah. That Again, fairly expected. Everything we had done up to this point was at least somewhat review, so your chances were a lot higher for not getting stuck. But yeah, starting now, instead of 90 minutes of class, it's 10 minutes of class, and then you're expected to do the homework. Oh, Leslie has help at home. So your mom was able to figure it out, Leslie, I assume. You can answer the last two. All right. I had to use examples and substitute numbers from the examples. Actually, Alex, that is almost exactly the process in all of these questions. Is that there's kind of a model for how these look, and you just plug in. So copying from the examples, or like copying the form from the examples, is exactly how you do most of these. This is just, especially the most recent homework was a formula essentially. So you can just plug stuff in. So yeah, let me know when you have finished and or given up on the questions on this format, so I can talk through these. Are these homeworks graded? Vachin, actually, so currently they aren't graded because I put them in a no count grading category. But they might actually be graded. We're getting more direction from the district sometime in the near future, like next 2 weeks, over whether or not we're going to be grading things for the rest of the semester. So I've been completely in the unknown on any of that stuff for a minute here, like since we left school. And we just got an update for the first time in like 2 weeks today. Can't do it without the example. Yeah. Right. So that will change as you encounter more of these, because you're gonna not memorize the example, but memorize the form of what the example looks like. And we're that was kind of the main thing I wanted to talk about today. Was graphing and or moving quadratics left, right, up, down, and reflecting and stretching. Oh, and Vachan, also I can put in missing assignments, but in non-graded categories, so they still show up as missing in Skyward. So that's a superpower I have, even when I'm not allowed to grade. So that's kind of cool. So last week we had more people and we had people shouting out answers. This week, no answers so far, although you can't really shout out question one. It's like make a picture. Uh, so still waiting for some oh, we got feedback. Sam thinks she got number two, and she did, so that's good. That was the easier way to factor it, the way you did it, where you take the three out, the greatest common factor first, because then the factoring's pretty easy. Uh, it's a little trickier if you leave the three in there and try to do it with the A times C method. Ooh, up to 6 people. Hello, new person. Yeah. The part of the lack in attendance is my fault because I forgot to post it on my homework calendar. I put it on my main web page, homepage, that there was the Thursday live stream, but I did not put it on my calendar. I should just put my one next week on there just to make sure it happens. And it's possible next week there might actually be a carrot, like there might actually be grades associated with things for second semester, and perhaps I'll be able to communicate that. Us teachers are just kind of in a difficult situation right now because the district has not given us much direction, but we're supposed to be communicating with you, which is a really weird situation to be in. Ooh, number 3. Let's see. X minus 3 squared. That part is right. The x minus 3 squared part. The minus 4 part is not right. But I think you may have just miswrote that in chat because there's no 4 in that question. So, Alex, your answer is very close. Yeah. Oh, now you stuck a 2 in front of the x minus 3. uh, if you combine your two answers, it's right. The minus 1 at the end's good, and your first x minus 3 squared in the first one was good. All right. Yeah. I think part of the reason you hate this is because it's not very familiar, and it feels like a lot of there just has not been as much verification of what you know. It's been a lot of rote, like basically making stuff up and throwing it at the wall and seeing if it works. Uh, and hopefully we'll help with a little bit of that today. So I wanted to start talking about these since chat's been a little quiet. So when you're graphing quadratics, one of the helpful things to do in this situation is to just make a table and plug in values. So usually if we just have little basic ones like this, we can just put in -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And then we just plug these numbers into this equation. So 0.5 times -2 squared. -2 squared is 4. 4 times 0.5 is 2. 0.5 times -1 squared. -1 squared is 1 times 0.5 is 0.5. 0 squared is 0, so it's just 0. And then 0.5 times 1 squared is the same as 0.5 times -1 squared. It's 0.5. And 0.5 times 2 squared is 2. 0.5 times 4. And now that we know these, all we do is graph these points. 0, 0. -1, 0.5. That's like here. 1, 0.5. That's like here. 2, comma 2. And -2, comma 2. And boosh, it looks something like this. And all quadratics end up looking like u's. And so this is our u quadratic for 0.5x squared. And all I did was plot all of these points. X is -2, y is 2. X is -1, y is 0.5. X is 0, y is 0. And all that kind of stuff. And again, these should always look like u's. And we can't just call this a slope, this 0.5, because we don't always go up by the same amount. When I go over 1 in between 0 and 0.5, I'm going up 0.5. But when I go over 1 from 1 to 2, I go from 0.5 to 2, which is up 1.5. So my slope is changing as I go up, and if you ever take calculus, we actually figure out all of the slopes at every point on the parabola. And it ends up being really easy to do. I could even teach you right now if you wanted, but I'm not going to. All right, that's the graphing one. The next one, the way Samantha did this, which worked out well, was to take out the GCF. And then this is just a little baby factoring problem with no number in front of x squared. What multiplies to 4 and adds to negative 4? It's negative 2 and negative 2. And we get 3 times x minus 2 times x minus 2. The third one says write the equation of a quadratic that has vertex 3 comma negative 1 and no vertical stretch. So, the way this works is there's this equation that looks like this, and if you watch the video that Ms. Polson made, you probably saw this equation. And there's this h and this k in it, in this equation, and there's this a here. And these are all numbers we know based on what is given to us in the description. So x and y stay, just like in a y equals mx plus b equation. We plug stuff in for m and b, but we keep the y and x the way they are. In quadratic equations, we plug stuff in for h, k, and a, and the x and y stay as they are. And all we plug in is h is 3, k is negative 1, because h comma k is always our vertex. And no vertical stretch means a equals 1. In other words, we don't need to write anything for a. So if you build this equation, you get y equals x minus 3 squared, because we plug in 3 for h. And then plus k is plus a negative 1, or just minus 1. And that's it. Oh, and we have a couple calculus students invading Algebra 1. Double Nix. Oh yeah, for the calculus nerds, it turns out the slope of this parabola at any point is just y prime equals x. The slope equals x, which is really easy. Wow. For our fourth question here, it says describe any transformations for the following quadratic. Here's a little baby quadratic here. And what's happening to this is there's a negative in front of the x squared. When we have a negative in front of our x squared, that means we reflect over the x-axis. And this was true when we did absolute values earlier this year, and it's true here as well. So that's the transformation for x, that first thing. And then for the second thing, we're shifted down 4 because there's a negative 4 and it's not next to the x, it's at the end. If it was next to the x, it would have been left or right, in this case, right? And it would have looked like this. This would have been right 4. But we did not have that in this problem. So now to my Algebra 1 students, are there any questions / does anybody have conjectures for what the hottest time of day is? Noon. That's our opening salvo from Vachin. 1. All right. Hello, Sophia. Do we have any from 3-ish? So interestingly enough, on this bottom question, on average during most times of the year, it is around 3 p.m. Noon is the time during a lot of the year when the sun is the brightest, but because the Earth traps a lot of the heat in during the day, having more sunlight hours actually heats up the Earth more. During the summer, the hottest time of day is actually at like 5 p.m. a lot of the time. During the winter, it can sneak down into like 1 or 2 p.m. And daylight savings also impacts this because for some reason we decide to do something like daylight savings. And so on average for us, it is around 3 p.m., but the time of year really impacts this. During the summer, it is absolutely like 5 p.m., which is pretty crazy stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, this is the. Oh, sad panda. All right, this is the really key part from the, I would argue, harder of the two lessons for this week, which is vertex form of the parabola. It's the y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. How many hours of gaming have you done in the past week? I have around 125 to 130 in the past 2 weeks, so I'd say somewhere in the range of 60 to 70. Without daylight savings, there would be less variance. Is really the key there, because daylight savings drives variance. So folks, vertex form of the parabola. This is really just a plug and chug sort of thing. So, a example of this is if we have the vertex form equation, y equals 1/2 times x minus 2 squared plus 4, we'd know all the things that I listed down below. The vertex is this comma this. It would be 2 comma 4. It wouldn't be negative 2 comma 4 because we already have this negative inside the equation. So what's being subtracted from x is actually a positive 2. My axis of symmetry is a really boring thing. It's just always x equals the x coordinate of the vertex. The reason why this is an axis of symmetry is because if you graph this thing, and we can, it's over 2 up 4, like meow, and then it's just going like a U. X equals 2 is this straight up and down line that cuts this parabola up perfectly in half. That's what an axis of symmetry is. It cuts a parabola in half. And I'll get to your question, Alex, in just a moment. The last part is the A is the stretch or compress. So in this case, it would be a compress because the number in front of my parabola is less than 1. It is 1/2, so it would be a compress of 1/2 in this case. So now Alex says, when do you switch h from negative to positive, like last night's homework? Well, let's do one with h being positive here. So if I have 4 times x plus 3 squared minus 7, a new parabola equation, my new vertex would be, there's a plus here. So if I'm subtracting and ending up with a positive, I'm going to have a negative initial x value. So what's going to make this number inside here positive is if my x-coordinate of my vertex is negative. It's always just the opposite of that number that follows the x because of the negative in the formula, which now looks like an equal sign. Whoops. So negative 3 comma negative 7 would be my vertex. My axis of symmetry is just x equals the x coordinate of the vertex. Literally just copy this guy. There isn't much to making that equation if you know the formula. And the last piece is a is the stretch or compress. So a in this case would be the number that comes in front here, which is 4, and it would be a vertical stretch. So this is going this direction. If we go the other direction to building an equation, which we absolutely can do, I could give you a vertex, -1, 4. I could give you an axis of symmetry, x equals -1. There's no secret to the axis of symmetry thing. It's x equals the x-coordinate of the vertex always. And if I said a equals 5, it's very easy for me to build an equation from this. All I do is y equals a, which I said was 5, times x minus h, but because it's a -1, and x minus a -1 is x plus 1, I gotta put an x plus 1 there. X plus 1 squared, and then plus 4, and booyah, we can build an equation from this. So not too bad to go back and forth here. So what I wanted to do was see if the Algebra 1 folks could figure this out. Hi, Rose. So I wanted to give you an equation and have you answer these things for me. So y equals 1/3 times x plus 2 squared plus 4. See if you can tell me these three things, or at least see if you can write these down or try to figure them out in your head, and then I'll be checking your answer, going over it, in a couple minutes. So I'll give you some time on this one. And yeah, Vachin, I play way too many video games. I'm actually kind of burned out on video games. It doesn't happen during school, because during school I have a huge break from video games, so I'm just like super stoked to play again. But during this time, I have way too much time to play video games. That is not good for me. Wait, so I should finish all the homeworks then, right? If your if your parents check, and good correction, Alex. If your parents check missing assignments, you should definitely finish all the homeworks. If you want to be prepared and actually up to date on math, you should definitely do all the homeworks. If you want to be prepared just in case we actually start grading, like I'm allowed to put those in for credit, you should absolutely do all your homeworks. That's what's up. And Samantha, that is a good answer to the second part. Also, Alex, in agreement. All right, nice. It looks like people are getting it. So -2, 4 is our vertex. Opposite of 2, 4. X equals -2 was our axis of symmetry, which a few people gave out, and it was a compress of 1/3 because that number is less than 1. And that's it. There is not a ton more to this. So time for another question. I'm going to go the other direction. I'm going to give you a vertex. So I'm going to say 71, 101 is my vertex. And I'm going to say I am stretching by 4. This is way easier than I thought it would be. Yeah. Sometimes it just helps to have a level of human connection here. Oh, Alex, the g of x thing is just something they replace y with. There is nothing more to that. It's just function notation. Uh, Basically, anytime you see an f of x or a g of x, just think of it like a y. There, it's just function notation. It's nothing too evil. Ooh, yeah, so I'll write this last answer with g of x when I go over it. The first assignment was a lot harder than the second. Oh, okay. So this was all second assignment stuff that I talked about here. The first assignment should have been like the first question on the warm-up. Should have been mostly just graphing. Let's see Vachin's here. Oh, Vachin, all you forgot was the squared, which you may have written, but you didn't put in your typed in piece. So if we look at Vachin's, instead of saying y equals, I'm going to say g of x equals, just to be a rebel like the homework. And you don't need to do this. You could have y equals here. It's fine. And I'm going to say x minus 71 squared plus 101. And that's it. Oh, and I forgot the 4. Feels bad. Stretch of 4. Good remembering. And yeah, that would be right. So that's all there is to this moving left, right, up, down sort of garbage. It's if you know this formula and you know the 3 things you need to plug in, you should be chilling. All right. So I'll talk a little more about graphing, and I sort of prepared a little bit here. Okay, so when you graph, Desmos helps a lot for any of the graphing assignments because you can always check your work. And so I like using it because it helps to talk about the questions. And the big idea for quadratic graphs is that they look like U's because the rate at which they go up, so their slope, increases as it goes along. So it gets steeper and steeper and steeper the farther you get from 0. If you just have y equals 1x squared, it means when you go over 1 from the vertex, you're going to go up 1. But when you go over 2, you're going to go up 2 squared. So when you go over 2 from the vertex, you're going to go up 4 because that's what 2 squared is. And that's why it goes up 4 like that. So this is the general shape of quadratic graphs. Now we can do a bunch of stuff to quadratic graphs. We can make them upside down, and all we do to make them upside down is reflect over the x-axis is we put a negative in front of x squared. And now it's going over 1, down 1, over 2, down 2 squared, which is 4. We can make these things steeper. So I can change my steepness to 4. And now, when I go over 1, I'm going... Oh, goodness. What am I doing with this graph? Here we go. When I go over 1, I'm going up 4. And when I went over 2, I can figure out what I go up to by just plugging a 2 in here. And 4 times 2 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. And so 2 would go through 16. And we can see that if we zoom out our Desmos graph. And I go all the way up here, and boom, right here, 2, 16. And we can also make these less steep by changing this number in front to be like 0.2. Now when I go over 1, I would be going up 0.2. And I can see that on my picture. Over 1, up 0.2. And when I go over 2 to find the value that I'd be going to, and I recommend making tables whenever you're doing these by hand, because you can just put in like 0, 1, and 2. 0 squared is 0. 1 squared is 1 times 0.2 is 0.2. But then our next value, 0.2 times 2 squared, is 0.2 times 4, which is 0.8, and would give us our next value here, which is 0.8. uh, was I able to help out with answering any questions about this? Are there any questions anybody has remaining who is an Algebra 1 student, hopefully, that I could assist with? I was trying to address Alex's concern with the first assignment being harder for her. Feel free to shoot me any questions. Ooh, AP Hug. Huh, I thought the district told us not to do Zoom. Interesting. uh... Any kind of final questions? Crazily enough, we're at the highest level of participation now after 40 minutes of any point thus far. I'll hold for another like 30 seconds to a minute, but if there are no more questions, I might just wrap up here and give you a little break before Hug. It was originally going to be on Zoom, but now it's through a different platform. That makes sense. I was happy to realize that YouTube gives me a lot more control that the district won't get mad at me for. Because there's no camera in YouTube that I use, so that is 2 thumbs up for me not getting in trouble. Did I say homework is going in the gradebook eventually? Yeah, I'm putting in homework into the gradebook now. I'm trying not to put it in until at least a week after it's due, because there are actually a fair number of my students who are sick right now and have emailed me about being sick. It's possible that the district will give us the go-ahead to make our assignments worth points, possible, and make a grade applicable for second semester. We still don't know, and the district still has not given us direction, so we're still waiting on that. So will our assignments ever be graded? The answer is maybe. The district has not told us anything, so I don't know. The district really has kept things under close wrapped and not shared a ton with teachers, so we're kind of in the dark. Should I fix my F? Alex, I would fix your F just from a being smarter standpoint, because if you work on that and get better at that, it's going to be one less thing you have to relearn in the future. And in the possibility it ends up being worth points, it's better to have an A there. Why can't we use Zoom? The general idea is Zoom has video capabilities and audio capabilities, and any student can record those, and any student can share their video, audio, or whatever. And that has both privacy and just liability issues. And so lawyers can't protect you if you're using something like Zoom the same way they can protect you if you're using something like YouTube, like I am. So it's a lawyer thing. And I stay out of that junk because I don't really know much about it. But generally, there were some less than ideal stuff has happened thus far in the state related to using Zoom for classroom. So that's the why. That's kind of abstract. No, we're not going to sue the district. It mostly the big problems have happened in other districts, and our district is just trying to play it safe. So they haven't said we can't use Zoom. They've said if you use Zoom, it'll be harder for us to protect you if something bad happens, and something bad can happen and has happened in other places. Which is more the it's lawyer speak stuff. So, uh, yeah. Well, I think I'll wrap up here. I'm gonna post this, and hopefully, people who did not attend would be able to watch it afterwards and maybe learn something about what's up, because this stuff is a lot easier than it probably appears if you try to do it blindly. And I hope today you were somewhat convinced of that. And stay safe. And if you're in my class, I miss you guys. I hope I see you again maybe come June. We'll see. And definitely be prepared for your AP exams, because AP exams are still happening, which is crazy, because all the other exams have canceled. Later, dudes.